All right, so I will welcome our next speaker. So we're moving on. Our next speaker is Calla Ostrander. Calla is a natural and working lands climate change coordinator at California Natural Resources Agency and a strategic advisor at Phoenix Rising Resources. A political economist, legislative strategist, organizer, and science communicator, Calla serves as a climate change innovations advisor to individuals and organizations dedicated to stabilizing Earth's climate. Current projects include the California Carbon Project in conjunction with the People, Food, and Land Foundation with lead support from Jenna King and Michael King Foundation and several other funders. Welcome, Calla.
Okay, yes, it's me. I'm not wearing my hat. For everyone who's wondering, I left it in Sacramento accidentally. Good morning. It's really, really good to see everybody here. I saw a lot of you the last time at down in a very hot place near Palm Springs. And so we're going to pick off where we left off there. Pick up where we left off. Let's see. Oh, gosh. Did I get this? Blue one. There we go. For those of you who were there, we talked about the expansion of carbon farming and the creation of compost markets in a pilot demonstration and business as usual phase. Generally, this is how a new product might move into market or how a company that is a startup might move from startup into fluency or adulthood. We left you at this little gap between demonstration and business as usual, and we are still in that gap. That is the gap where creativity comes into being, where innovation comes into being, and where some things don't make it through. We need new policies, new markets, new ways of doing business, and new science to get us into a new normal. So how are we bridging that gap? That's what I was asked to update everybody on today. I'm going to go through this very quickly. Carbon farming, community and on-farm composting, SB 1383 implementation, research, barriers, from my perspective, existing and new policy. Okay, then and now, real quick. Last time I spoke with you, we had 26 RCDs, which are resource conservation districts, offering carbon farm planning. Today, there are over 40, and there are 7 carbon farming hubs statewide. They are offering to ranchers and to row crop farmers, vineyards, and orchardists throughout the state. This year, we have $85 million proposed in the budget for healthy soils, which is great. The NRCS Interim Conservation Practice Standard was just instituted when I last spoke to you, and now it's coming up for approval. So those of you who hope to have customers that have extra money to buy your compost, you should definitely consider writing to the federal government and encouraging them to approve this standard, and also to read a little bit about CN ratios because they still don't get it. A couple weeks ago, we had a very big announcement from the feds. The Biden administration gave $1 billion to what they're calling climate smart commodities. This also has an equity, inclusion, and small farmer provision, which is fairly revolutionary and will go to farmers and ranchers and small communities in the climate smart agriculture space. The thing to pay attention to here is the green states. So we had 9 states that had passed healthy soils legislation, and 2021, 14 had passed, 10 had pending, and 9 had similar legislation that had passed. So we've seen a large national adoption of these policies. I'd like to point out that I live in the Southwest, so good job, good job. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of time on the road, a lot of good people, a lot of community leaders, and everybody pulling together to make this happen. So this hopefully is a driver, right? This is hopefully going to push some demand for compost and also help people heal the planet and maybe our own guts in the process. Cities and counties are key players in circularity. This is a slide from the MacArthur Foundation. We're only recovering about 2% of the nutrients and energy that goes into our food stream currently. Most of that dead ends in cities. Actually, it actually dead ends in the landfill when it gets picked up from cities. So 1383 is a headache, yes, but think of it as an amazing opportunity to move Earth's resources back to Earth. Community and on-farm composting, you're going to hear from Courtney later today about all the incredible work that CalRecycle has helped to fund with community sites. We see the increasing prop up of farmers markets as drop-off sites. We're seeing micro haulers finding way to do business with large haulers, a lot of innovative partnerships between community composters and larger organizations, which I think is great because community composters are really good at educating folks, and people love going to their farmers market with their food bucket, but you still need commercial and large scale multifamily type of services. So hopefully we're going to understand that if we all work together, we work better. For those of you who work with farmers, not that any of you do, if they're having a hard time getting compost set up, just tell them to set up a cooperative and then none of the rules apply. They still can't accept municipal, but they can trade products that they've grown among each other in order to compost them better. So that's a sort of a trick for on-farm composting. For those of you who want to reference this later, we created a process guide with the Urban Sustainability Directors Network, thanks to San Francisco's leadership. That helps communities, city governments, county governments work with their haulers, work with community composters, advocates, and their own agencies to craft plans for organic materials management. This is from a municipal standpoint. So if you're a hauler and you're trying to work with your city to figure out what the plan is, you want to work with community composters, or your community composter, and you want to get your city to work with you, this is a sort of highly reputable source, and you can work on it. Kevin, Drew, and I can both answer questions about that. Local government implementation. There's a carbon sequestration calculator we created for urban landscapes. If you're interested, let me know. I'm gonna move fast. There's a wonderful person here. Some of you may know Sasha. She's at Berkeley. She's gonna produce some research here pretty soon, which I think is gonna be interesting. So I want to include a couple slides here. Sasha is looking at the optimal place to locate new compost facilities given proximity to agricultural markets, both in rangelands and farmlands, understanding the cost of hauling and distance, both from source and to final destination. So find Sasha today if you want to know about what she's doing. She's also doing this for community composting as a subset of this industry. So here's her model that's in progress. And it's really fascinating because it starts to kind of look at costs and these types of things that we need to do to standardize the development of facilities throughout the state. Okay, here's the bad news. This is a peer-reviewed published paper that came out in Nature Climate Change a couple of weeks ago. And essentially what it's saying is the landscape's ability to absorb carbon is dependent upon the soil's ability to hold moisture. So that's what they mean when they say variability in soil moisture drives global carbon land uptake. So as soils dry out, the soil and the forests and everything on top of it are unable to hold that carbon, right? So wonderful thing is when you have good compost and you put it on the soil, it does really sort of act as a jump start or medicine for that process. And in a world that's rapidly warming and in a vast and accelerating state of climate change, which frankly, we're all unable to really grasp what's going on right now, but it's happening really fast. What this article says, and this is the good news, is that compost actually can be a huge benefit when it comes to restabilizing that carbon cycle because it triggers increase in soil moisture capacity within that soil. And then that in turn triggers soil carbon uptake. Some barriers. This is my personal barrier list. I know you all have barriers you're working on. Who's tried to permit a new compost facility in California? I don't know, in the last like 20 years. We should have drinks later. Permitting for medium compost facilities. I think this is a really exciting thing. Props to Michael Martinez from LA Compost for creating this lovely term. Clean Air Act, a couple tips. I think that it is open to be reinterpreted, specifically because not all VOCs form the criteria pollutants that they're trying to regulate, and because right now they're viewing a new source as an additional source when you actually may be collecting materials that are causing more VOCs in that air basin than your treatment is. So there's a cumulative argument to be made here. Anybody who's a policy wonk, please talk to CalRecycle and the Air Resources Board about this, because we desperately need to get more facilities permitted. I'm a really big believer in many sizes and diversity lifts all boats. So I think there's plenty of areas where small micro haulers actually make a lot of sense. And they can work in tandem with larger haulers. It's not really competition so much as it's collaboration, finding ways to make this work in your communities, the communities that you're in. Maybe hard to get places where you have a hard time getting drivers. I really would encourage you to take a look at this. There's some great opportunities to employ women of color and women in general in this area. Funding for new facility development, plastics, compostable packaging. We all know this is an issue ending up in the compost stream. Again, for the really wonky people in the room, the DACENT model, which is used for the Healthy Soils program, is currently not capturing the full carbon benefit of compost. So we want to get that model updated. Right now, it's basing compost emissions and sequestration off of manure and not actually off of the real science that we have on compost. So we need to get that updated. You're going to get a lot more credit when it comes to that framework if we can get that model updated. New policies. Oh my God, I'm out of time. 54. Don't worry about it. It's probably not going to happen. It might happen. Don't tell anybody I said that. It's not going to get what we need us to get to. And I'm going to say that this is my personal opinion. I think what's going to get us there is the Recycling and Plastics Pollution Reduction Act, which is the ballot initiative. Someone's going to talk more about that later. There's a lot of public support for it. The public's in front of the legislature on this one. It's going to give us a lot of things we need at the same time. This is a multifaceted, multi-headed issue that's plastics pollution. The public knows it. The legislature doesn't know it quite as well. These are the partners for that initiative. Remember that we're doing this for these people, and we all eat these people, and we all live on this planet with water and air, and it's powered by the sun. Just remember that, and it'll be good. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you, Calla. Do we have a question? We'll take questions in the room first. So any questions for Calla? I do not see any hands.
What? Come on.
Come on. I will ask a question. Do we have any questions online?
There's a question.
Oh, wait, where?
Here?
Back there? Oh, okay.
Test. We have a question online.
Okay.
This question is from Esmeralda Carrera. How can we make sure that community composters are sustainable in the long term?
That's a great question. And Courtney, who is a wonderful facilitator and manager for the California Alliance for Community Composting, is here today. And I think she could probably answer that better than I can. I think continuing to show support if you're a citizen for these groups in your community, donating to them, talking to them, advocating for them, just going out and turning the compost pile. Participation is probably the biggest thing you could do in my mind. But again, Courtney will have more specific answers, I'm sure.
Okay, we do have a question all the way in the back. Someone with the mic. Oh, I'm horrible at this.
Thank you, Calla. That was awesome. Thank you for the update. So exciting to hear about all those advancements within just a couple of short years. Since you didn't get a lot of chance to talk about the exciting initiatives that are that we should be supporting, can you talk a little bit more about the recycling initiative? I barely got the name of it right there at the end.
Yeah, I believe there's going to be we're talking about the ballot initiative today. It's called the Plastics Pollution Reduction and Recycling Act. It's a ballot initiative that Californians Against Waste helped put on the ballot last year, and has a very broad coalition of support, including big enviros like the Nature Conservancy, Oceana, and then a lot of smaller groups as well. So the wonderful thing about that, I just want to plug it for a second, is like, it's like whack-a-mole with plastics, right? You're like this, and then this, but then there, and it's like a big thing. So this attempts to like address 7 key areas all at once, which is source reduction, improved infrastructure for composting and recycling, displacing, so putting an incentive on the materials we want and disincentivizing the materials we don't want, and then a number of other sort of wonky things in between. But to sort of do it all at once, I think is kind of, and it's imperfect, but we're not going to, the first step is not going to be perfect, but this is actually a step in that we won't have another mole pop its head up. We're going to get a little bit of water, and we can move on. The big thing I'd say I learned from SB 1383 is everybody be prepared for the rulemaking process. The devil is in the details, folks.
That's right. And we do, so we do have a speaker before lunch talking about the ballot initiative from CAW. And then Courtney is not here, but Zero is here and they are speaking later. So you can ask all those questions to Zero.
Sorry, Joe.
It's okay. All right, but thank you, Calla, so much.